Welcome to Learn Extra Live, guys. This is Maths Literacy for grade 11s. I'm here with the awesome Peter, who's going to be taking us through today's lesson. So, Peter, what are we doing this week?
Well, first of all, Ty, I just want to say, how's it? It's good to have you here. Great. Awesome. I believe Indiana's taking a bit of a break.
Yes, she is, but she does send her love, though.
Okay, great. You know, she used to get me a little bit confused a lot of the time, but she was really great because I can never remember answers. So when I write them down, I had to tell her, she'd remember, and then we'd go. So I hope you've really...
Don't worry, I'm on it. I'm on it. I've got you.
Okay, cool. Well, like I said, Ty, the other problem we've got is I have a nephew called Kai, and you are Ty. So who knows what I'll be calling you today, but it's really good to have you here.
Yeah,
and I want to say, I believe you went for a job interview, and we were really impressed about it. At his job interview, we said to Ty, look, we need someone responsible. And he said, I'm very responsible. In my last job, every time something went wrong, they'd say, you're responsible.
Yes.
That's right. Well, welcome.
Thank you.
It's all about graph work today.
Awesome.
And I think you've got to call an ad break because I'm not allowed to do that.
Yes. So guys, make sure you Facebook me, tweet me, www.facebook.com/learnextra. And guys, tweet me @learnextra. And guys, next week's lesson, we're going to be discussing data representation and interpretation. So make sure if you're working in groups, you're working together and you guys talk to us on the page. And also guys, we're going to be taking a look at linear functions and simultaneous equations. So guys, hope you're having fun today. Get your pens and pads out. Remember, talk to me on the page so I can get Peter those questions and we can have them answered for you. See you after this break. Welcome back, Mindsetters, to grade 11 Maths Literacy with Peter here, who's going to be taking us through the lesson. I'm going to hand straight over to Peter. Take it away.
Thank you, Ty. And again, we want to welcome Ty into the studio. It's the first time he's been here for Maths Literacy anyway, and so it's really great to have him. So welcome, Ty.
Thank you
hopefully
again.
We'll have some great fun. Indiana is around. She's just making sure everything runs smoothly today. In fact, she's in the room next door. We can't see her, and it's quite nice because we can really rip her off and use her as examples. You know, whenever we need something bad to talk about, we can use her, and she can't do anything because she's not here.
Exactly.
All right, let's get started. First of all, it's a terribly rainy, miserable day in Johannesburg at the moment. Really, really, really wet. In fact, my wife came home and said to me, Pete, how do you find the weather? And I said, it's quite easy. You go outside and there it is, you know. But really lousy weather, so you guys who live in Joburg, you got no excuse for not watching this program. There's no reason to run outside. So make yourself comfortable and let's learn as much as we can. If you're in grade 12, guys, stay where you are. Stay focused. Watch the program, because a lot of this work we're doing today in grade 11 is the basis of your grade 12. In fact, in grade 11 today we're looking at graphs, and in grade 12 we're also going to be looking at a bit of graph work. So the one leads on to the other. So grade 12, stay where you are. Grade 11, stay where you are. Okay. The best way, I think, to learn anything is by going through a few examples. And that's what we're going to do right now. Okay, so let's have a look at this example here. Question 1, here we go. Now just incidentally, this thing that we're looking at today, this is a test I gave my grade 11 guys the other day. Okay, well, part of it anyway. So you know the kind of work now I'm giving my boys. All right, so Spinning Wheels Car Hire had the following advert displayed in a local newspaper. Spinning Wheels Car Hire. There it is. Lovely, lovely, lovely little car. Wish I had one like that. Looks like the front wheel's coming off. Looks like the back wheel has come off, and now we've only got one. Only got 2 doors. A great, great, great vehicle for dating. Okay, there it is. Absolutely brilliant. Going to have an amazing effect on your relationship with someone. Okay, so zippy vehicle deal number 1. So what actually happens in this whole scenario is basically this. You are wanting to impress someone. Okay, guys, you're trying to impress your girl, and so you decide you're going to take her out on a date. There's only one problem. Okay, you tell her, I'll pick you up at 7. She says, oh, that's fantastic. And then you realize, eesh, I don't have a car. So now you rush off to the local car hire and you say, please, I've got to hire a car. And the car hire place in this case is called Zippy Vehicle. Okay? That's in fact, Spinning Wheels Car Hire. That's what the company is called. And they have a little car called the Zippy Vehicle. And so we say to them, oh, that's fantastic. How much is it going to cost me to hire this vehicle? And they say, well, how long do you want it for? And you say, well, I actually only need it for a day. And they say, right, we have one of two options for you. Option number one, let's have a look. Deal one. You're going to pay 300 Rand a day, unlimited mileage. In other words, guys, you can get in this car and travel from Joburg to Durban and back to Joburg, as long as you do it in a day, okay? It's going to cost you 300 Rand for that day, and you can travel as far or as a shorter distance as you want to. Deal number two, they say, you can go deal one or deal two where you're only going to pay 100 Rand for the day. Sounds like a bargain, but there's a little catch. And the catch is this. You also got to pay 1 Rand for every kilometer you travel as well. Ish. So deal one, 300 Rand a day, travel as far as you want to go. Deal two, travel 100 Rand and travel as far as you want to go, but now you're going to pay 1 Rand for every kilometer you travel. Got it? Understand? I'm sure you do. Now let's have a look at the question. In order to determine which would be the better deal, Jono represents each deal as an equation. He comes up with the following two equations. Equation one, he says cost is equal to 300 Rand. And equation two, he says cost is equal to 1 Rand per kilometer plus 100 Rand. Now you'll notice from this then that he's saying 1 Rand K, R1K. In other words, 1 Rand times the number of kilometers. Okay, let's see what the question is going to tell us now. Which equation represents deal one? Equation one or equation two? Let's go back to that. So there we've got them. Okay, deal one, 300 Rand a day. Equation one, cost is equal to 300 Rand. I think equation one and deal one go together, which means then equation two and deal two must go together, because deal two, 100 Rand a day, there it is, 100 Rand a day, okay, plus 1 Rand a kilometer, there it is there, plus 1K. Easy, straightforward, okay? Next question. Jono then sketches on a set of axes, let's just get this, as illustrated below. Okay, can you see what Jono's done? He's got a set of axes here, and I'm going to interrupt myself again. I always say this every week, but I've got to interrupt myself. It's quite nice to interrupt myself, because normally my wife does that, so let me take advantage of this. But on looking at a set of axes, notice I've got to tell the examiner what the set of axes represent. So all these numbers on the side represent something. What do they represent? They represent the cost. Not just the cost, but the cost in rands. If we don't say cost in rands, then over here I'm going to have to put an R, an R, an R to show that they're in rands. Sorry, I do know how to write, it's just sometimes this pen goes funny. Okay? But to save me putting the R's in front of every number, let's get rid of it, I'm just going to say cost in rands. Now, on my vertical axis, or horizontal axis rather, I've got the number of kilometers. So do you see that? In any graph, I've got to label my vertical axis, and I've got to label that horizontal axis. I've also got to give my graph a title. Okay? So those are three things the examiner is going to look for right in the beginning. Before he even looks at your graph, he's going to say, do I have a title of this for this graph? Do I have the labeled axes on the vertical and the labeled axes on the horizontal axis? How can I remember the difference between horizontal and vertical? It's quite simple. If I stand on top of a cliff, okay, and I look out, what do I see? I see the horizon. Horizon, horizontal. Can you see that? Vertical is a V. Let's have a look here. Vertical starts with a V. And an arrow also has like a V in it. So my vertical axis is up and down, and my horizontal axis is this axis that runs across my page. Quite a nifty way of remembering it, hey Tom?
That is pretty helpful.
I think so. Okay, it helped me, and look where I am today, standing in front of a screen. Okay, now, he's drawn a graph already. Here's the graph. Can you see it? It's a darker white line. In other words, he's saying if I travel no kilometers at all, it's going to cost me 300 Rand. If I travel 100 kilometers, it's going to cost me 300 Rand. If I travel 400 kilometers, it's going to cost me 300 Rand. Okay, this is an interesting one. According to this graph, if I travel no kilometers at all, it's also going to cost me 300 Rand. In other words, if Johnny goes off to our car dealer, what were they called? Zippy car dealers?
Zippy vehicles.
This was a Zippy vehicle, yeah, I can't remember the name of the car dealer. But he goes off to the car rental place and he says, can I rent a car? And they say, yeah, sure. Which package do you want? He says, I want the one that's 300 Rand and I can travel as far as I want. And they say, cool, that's going to cost you 300 bucks. He pays the 300 bucks and he goes and he sits in the car. And he just looks all over inside the car. And he looks at the dashboard, says, shoosh, this can go up to 140 k's an hour. Impressive. Okay. Sure. Check, there's a clock on here. Sure. There's a funny little thing here that you use. If my mother-in-law's watching, it's called the gear lever. Okay. Sure, there are funny pedals here. This has been quite an experience. And he gets out the vehicle and he goes back to the counter and says, thanks very much, that was wonderful. Okay. He's hired the car, but he hasn't gone anywhere. He's traveled nowhere. How much is he paying? He's still paying the 300 Rand. Okay? Because the deal was 300 Rand and travel as far as you go, or want to go. Okay? For free. He decided to go nowhere. So even if he's traveled nowhere, he's paying the 300 Rand. Do we understand that? And that's why we've got this graph running this way. Okay, now let's look at our question. In order to sketch the equation, Jono constructs the following table. With the use of this table, sketch the graph of cost is equal to 1 Rand per kilometer plus 100 Rand on the axis provided. Okay, the axis already has the graph of cost is equal to 300 Rand. We saw that graph earlier. So what he's now doing is saying, right, we have this equation of cost is equal to 1 Rand times the number of kilometers plus my 100 Rand rental. So if I travel 400 kilometers, let's look at this one. If I travel 400 kilometers, I'm being charged 1 Rand for every kilometer. And 1 times 400 gives me 400 Rand. But then he's also got to pay the rental of 100 Rand. So he's paying 400 Rand for traveling 400 kilometers plus 100 Rand for the rental. So for traveling 400 kilometers, he's paying 500 Rand. That's what he's got. Let's have a look at this one over here. For 100 kilometers, every kilometer he travels, he pays 1 Rand. So for 100 kilometers, he's paying 100 Rand. But he's still got to pay the rental charge of 100 Rand as well. So 100 for traveling, 100 Ks plus 100 for the rental gives me 200 kilometers. Now let's have a look here. If he travels nowhere, okay, so Jono again gets inside the car, looks at the interior, says, sure, this is a smart car. There's a funny little stick here. Mother-in-law again, it's called the gear lever, okay, there it is. Sure, there's funny little pedals down yonder, okay, one's called a brake, mother-in-law, the other one's called petrol, okay, lovely little gadgets. Sure, this car can go all the way up to 30 kilometers an hour, powerful stuff, lovely little clock. And then he gets out the car and he goes back to the counter and he hands him the key. And he says, I've had a wonderful experience looking at the interior of this car. And they say, but you didn't go anywhere. No, that's okay, I didn't want to. I just wanted to rent the car. Okay? They're going to say, well, the rental cost you 100 Rand. But because you traveled nowhere, we can't charge you. Because we said we'll charge you R1 for every kilometer you travel. You haven't moved out the car park. You've traveled 0 kilometers, we've got to charge you 0 for that. So all we can charge you is the rental of R100. Okay, now we're going to try and plot this graph. So let's have a look at plotting the graph. Now we said, and I'm going to try and do that, if I travel 9 kilometers, it's going to cost me R100. Can you see that? If I travel 100 kilometers, it's going to cost me 200 Rand. If I travel 200 kilometers, it's going to cost me 300 Rand. And if I travel, you get the idea. So all we're going to do now is we are going to join all the dots. Okay? So I know that's going to be 500 kilometers, 600 Rand. So I'm going to use this wonderful technology that we have, and I'm going to say from that point, I'm going up to that point over there. In other words, guys, my graph starts at 100. It carries all the way on until we reach 600 Rand, because 500 kilometers costing me 600 Rand. Now, there are a few questions which we haven't asked that I want to pose to you. Certain things that are absolutely critical. Okay. The first thing you're going to have noticed, and you might be sitting there saying, geez, Pete, this is so easy. Well, yeah, it is easy. But the reason why it's easy is because this would be a type of, a paper 1 type of question. And remember, at the end of your matric, and even at the end of your grade 11 year, you're going to write 2 exam papers. One is a paper 1, which we just look at the basics. And then the paper 2 is the paper where we now not only look at the basics, but we're saying, can you apply those basics? Can you interpret some of the basics that you've learnt? So far, we've looked at paper 1 type questions. Now let's introduce a few of paper 2 questions. For example, why is this thing here a straight line? Why is it a straight line? Why did this line not do anything like this maybe? Okay, let's get rid of that because that's quite ugly. So why have I got a straight line? Whenever I see a straight line, there's one word that's got to jump to mind instantly. Okay, and that's the word constant. There must be something that's consistent here. If I've got a straight line, there's some consistency. And what is the consistency? In this case, it's that for every kilometer traveled, I'm being charged R1. I haven't said, okay, look, if you travel some kilometers, we'll charge you R1. If you travel 200 kilometers, we'll charge you R3. If you travel 210 kilometers, I don't know, let's make a figure, we'll charge you R3. Not at all. We've said R1 for every kilometer. There's a constant charge per kilometer. Because there's a constant, we now have a straight line. Okay, are you all right with that? Are our viewers happy at the moment? Or
everyone's happy right now. Everyone's saying, awesome stuff. We're good to go.
Okay, cool. I think this is a great time for a break personally, and then we'll pick up another question. But I'm not allowed to say we're having a break. Apparently, Indiana got upset. So,
yeah, apparently that's my job.
That's your job.
Pete, you can't do both, as in teach and do my job.
Oh, this is it. Okay.
But anyway, guys, the page is looking a bit quiet, so guys, get those questions in. Start talking more. Danilo, I see you, and everybody has a sense of humor. Come on. So guys, talk on the page. Guys, make sure that you're interacting with each other, talk to each other. Will Jr., I see you. I like your joke. Guys, we'll be back after this break. Welcome back, Mindsetters. It's grade 11 maths literacy. Pete, before we get started, I have quite an interesting joke here. I don't know if I should share with you.
No, do it. This is what it's all about.
Kashifa wrote, the equation is simple. The teacher said, the equation is simple. If I have 5 bottles in one hand and 6 in the other hand, what do I have? Well, the student replied, a drinking problem. So no, the teacher responds, no, the answer is 11 bottles, 11. The student still replies, well, I still think you should look into counseling.
Guys, I think, you know, we enjoy our jokes, as mine are sometimes corny, and we're trying to keep this program a bit lighthearted. So if you got one or two, please send them in, and that'll be good, and it keeps us off the bottle, I think. Yeah.
True,
okay. We had a question now that just came through from someone called
Isaiah.
Isaiah, thanks for this question. He had a wonderful observation. He looked at this graph that I drew, and his question was this: how come you've drawn a dotted graph and not a solid graph? Isaiah, the question is quite simple. It's the answer is quite simple. You've answered a fantastic question, and you know, it was actually very wrong of me to use that dotted line. But here's the reason why I did. It's because I didn't have a solid line on this program. But I found something now, so I'm going to try and use it. Here it is, it's in red, and I'm going to say, there it is. Isaiah, I hope that answers your question. It should be a solid line. Okay. 100% right. Thanks for observing that. And next time I'll be a little more careful on the technology that I use. Okay. Right. So if you've just joined us, we're busy with graph work, and we looked at a scenario where Jono asks a girl, please, I want to take you out on a date. I'll pick you up at 7. She's so excited, and then he realizes he doesn't have a car. Okay, so he dashes off to a car hiring company and he says, please, I need to borrow a car. He sees a fantastic car with only 3 wheels, but he likes it anyway. And he says, how much to hire this car? And the guy says, well, you've got one of 2 options. Okay, option number 1, 300 Rand for the whole day, travel as far as you want. Option number 2, 100 Rand a day, but we're going to charge you 100 Rand per kilometer. And if you look at the graph we've got on the screen, you will actually see I've got 2 graphs already. I've got option 1, where we're paying 300 Rand for the whole day. So it doesn't matter how many kilometers we've traveled, it's costing me 300 Rand. Option 2, we're saying we start at 100 Rand, and for every kilometer thereafter, it's costing me 1 Rand. So 100 kilometers costing me 100 Rand, plus the 100 Rand hiring costing me 200 Rand. Okay, so we spoke about that before break, and now we need to answer a few questions. So let's have a look at them. First question, using your graph, determine each of the following answers. Again, I interrupt myself. The question says quite clearly, using your graph. So guys, if the question says use your graph, you have got to use your graph in answering that question. Even if your graph is entirely wrong, you've still got to use that graph. So let's look back at our graph, and let's just say, let's pretend that red line is not there. Let's say I drew a graph and it looked like kind of weird like this. And it says, using your graph, determine how much it's going to cost you if you travel 300 kilometers. And I say, right, 300 kilometers is going to cost me that much money over there, which is around about 650 Rand. And so using my graph, I come up with an answer of 650 Rand. Now that's entirely and completely and utterly and yeltamal wrong. Okay? But based on your graph, you're right. And so when the examiner marks that, or when the person who's marking your end of the matric paper, or even when your teacher marks the end of your grade 11 paper, they're going to look at the graph, they're going to laugh hysterically. But the next question says using your graph, then they're going to look and say, you know what, based on his graph, this boy Keith's right. I've got to give him full marks for that. Okay, so that's quite encouraging. So even if you mess up one part of the question, you can still get full marks for the second part of the question. Okay, but now I've interrupted myself again, so let's just get rid of this horrific graph that we scribbled down. And back to the question, and the question was, okay, using your graph, determine each of the following. If John only intends to travel 350 kilometers, which would be the better deal? Okay, so let's go. He wants to travel 350 kilometers. That means that what he's wanting to do is from 350, which is round about over here, okay, which is the better deal? Well, on option number 1, or deal 1, he's going to pay 300 Rand. Can you see that? Let's just point that out. 300 Rand. But on option number 2, he's going to pay a little bit more. He's going to pay around about, there we go, 450 Rand. So which is the better deal? Option 1 is the better deal. Easy? Of course it is. Let's look at another question. Again, using our graph. How much would Jono be charged if he drove 300 kilometers using deal 1 and then using deal 2? So let's have a look at our graph. We're traveling 300 kilometers. Deal 1 is going to be charged 300 Rand. Deal 2, he's going to be charged, here it is over here, 400 Rand. Do you understand that? Straightforward, okay? So deal 1, 300 Rand. Deal 2, 400 Rand. Right, next question. After how many kilometers will the two graphs break even? Okay, now we need to introduce a concept of break even, or when will they be equal. Now guys, we tend to use the term break even when we're dealing with businesses. And break even is when we have an expense and when we have an income. And we're saying we've got an expense, we've got an income, when do they break even? In other words, at what point is my income equal to my expense? Now this question, what we're asking is, when are the two deals equal? In other words, how far must I travel so that it doesn't matter if I use deal 1 or use deal 2? So let's have a look at that. If we look at this point over here, we can see that deal 1 and deal 2 are exactly the same. What are they? They're exactly 300 Rand. And they're exactly 200 kilometers. So if I got in my car and I traveled 200 kilometers exactly, I'm going to pay 300 Rand using deal 1. If I travel 200 kilometers, I'm going to pay 300 Rand using deal 2. So traveling 200 kilometers doesn't matter which deal I use. Now let's think about this. When would I use deal 1 or option 1? In other words, when would be the best time to use my white graph? Okay? So let's have a look. Anything before 200 Rand, the red graph is always lower. In other words, deal 2 is the better deal. It's going to be the cheaper deal. Anything after 200, option 1 now becomes the better deal. Can you see that? So if I were to draw it on a bit of yellow, that's cheaper, 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 cheaper. Now that is cheaper, 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 cheaper. Can you see what I've done there? Okay, so option 1 is cheaper if I travel less than 200 kilometers, and option 2 is cheaper if I travel less than 200 k's, and option 1 is cheaper if I travel more than 200 kilometers. Can you see that? Okay, excellent. Right, we're doing quite well, so let's go on to another question quickly. We've asked the break-even question. Okay. We're going to look at another question all about having a cell phone or a certain type of telephone. Okay. Before we do that though, we were talking about cars. Ty? Okay. Yeah, we'll get there. All right. So Ty, we were talking about cars, and there was a young man who wanted his own car. All right. So he goes to his dad and he says to his dad, "Dad, I really want a car. I'm turning 18. I really, really want a car." And his dad says, "All right, but there are a few things we've got to sort out. Number 1, if you want a new car, your grades have got to improve. Okay, that's number 1. Number 2, your behavior in the classroom has got to improve. Number 3, you've got to start reading your Bible a little bit more. And number 4, boy, you've got to cut your hair. Get back to me in 2 months and we'll discuss the car again." So 2 months go past, and the guy goes to his dad and says, "Dad, time to talk about the car." And the dad says, "Well, number 1, let's look at your grades." "Well, they've really come up nicely. Fantastic. Number 2, your behavior in class. Teachers at school are saying you're being fantastic, you're a wonderful kid, huge change around, brilliant. Number 3, you had to start reading your Bible. And I've been watching you at night, and you're reading your Bible, and I'm really proud of you. But number 4, I got a problem. You have not cut your hair at all. And the boy says, Dad, about that. I was reading in the Bible that you made me read. And I read that John the Baptist had long hair. I was reading that James had long hair. That Paul the Apostle had long hair. In fact, even Jesus had long hair. And the dad turned around and said, yeah. But if you look at all 4 of those people, and you go back in history, you will see that all 4 walked everywhere they had to go. Okay. So, guys, behave in class, do your work, get your grades up, cut your hair, read your Bible, and who knows, you may get a car. Okay. Now, time to move on. A telephone company allows 3 options. Option number 1, 3 Rand per minute. Option number 2, 200 Rand per month and 2 Rand per minute. And option number 3, 400 Rand per month plus 1 Rand per minute, but you also get 200 free minutes every single month. Okay. Now, chaps, a lot of you, guys and girls, a lot of you out there have cell phones. And a lot of you know basically about this terminology called pay-as-you-go and a contract system. Okay? And a pay-as-you-go, basically, you go off to a shopping centre, and I'm not allowed to mention Pick and Pay on the air, so I won't do that, but you go off to some shop and you say, I want to buy some airtime. And they push a few buttons, they give you a little funny piece of paper, you take it, it's got some numbers on, all right? When you're my age, you put your glasses on, you read the numbers, you punch them into your cell phone, and you got airtime, okay? Straightforward. In other words, you only pay for the calls that you make. If you don't make any calls, you're not going to pay for them, right? Pay as you go. And then we have another system, a contract system. And the contract system is basically where you go off to a service provider and you say, I want a contract, and they say, okay, cool. We'll give you a contract for this phone, you're only going to pay 200 Rand a month, okay? And we'll charge you so much per minute that you talk. And normally it's cheaper than the pay-as-you-go rate. Okay? Pay-as-you-go rate, you might pay 3 Rand a minute. On a contract, you might only pay 2 Rand a minute. Then there's the third option, which is also part of contract, where you go to a guy and you say, right, I want a contract, and they say, well, now this contract, you're going to pay so much a month. We're also going to charge you so much per call that you make, okay, or so much per minute that you talk, but as an incentive to make you buy this package, we're going to give you some free minutes. And you think, wow, fantastic, but is it a good deal? So let's have a look at this whole scenario over here. Right, so option number 1. Option 1, 3 Rand a minute. So if I go off and I buy my phone, and I run off to the shop, I'm not allowed to mention Pick and Pay, and I go there and I buy my little slip, put in the money, and I don't talk. I just put the cell phone down and I don't talk. In fact, I have my cell phone here. Okay? I'm not allowed to turn around, otherwise you'll see what type it is, so I can't do that. So I'll just show you the back of it. So here's my cell phone, very basic, very simple. Put money in it, and then I put it down, and I just watch it all month. Okay? No one phones me because I don't have friends. It's quite sad. And I don't phone anyone because no one will give me their number. But I just watch my phone all month. At the end of that month, I haven't made a call. So my cost is absolutely nothing. Okay? I don't owe any money. If I made 50 minutes worth of calls, I'm going to land up paying 3 Rand for every one of those minutes. So I'm now going to pay 3 times 50 is 150 Rand. 100 minutes, 300 Rand. 150 minutes, 450 Rand. 200 minutes, 600 Rand. 250, 750 Rand. 300, 900 Rand. How am I getting these figures? I'm timesing the number of minutes that I speak by 3 Rand. Okay. Now, let's have a look at option 2. Option 2 says this. You're going to pay 200 Rand a month. So, I got my cell phone, rush off say, I want this contract. Cool. Why? Because I'm only going to pay 2 rand for every minute. Can you see that? Here it's 2 rand, there it's 3 rand. Only 2 rand, what a bargain, I need this. Okay? So go off, they give me the contract, and now I put my cell phone on my hand and I just look at it. Can't phone anyone because no one will give me their number. No one phones me because I got no friends. So I just stand and look at my cell phone all day in the hope, in the anticipation that one day I will know what the ring sounds like. But there I am looking at my cell phone. At the end of that month, no one's phoned me and I haven't phoned anybody. Okay? How much do I owe? Well, I've made no calls, so it's going to cost me nothing. Hold on. Pete, you signed a contract, and your contract said it was going to cost you 200 rand a month. So even though I made no calls, I still got to pay for that contract. So I'm still paying 200 rand for that contract. Okay? If I speak for 50 minutes, now what I'm doing is I'm paying 2 rand for every minute, so 2 times 50 is 100 rand. But then I still got that horrible 200 rand contract. So it's 100 rand plus the 200 rand, 300 rand I'm paying. I speak for 100 minutes. 100 times 2 is 200, plus the 200 contract, 400 rand. And so we just carry on over here. This is going to cost me 500. This is going to cost me 600. This is going to cost me 700. And if I talk for 300 minutes, 300 times 2 is 600 rand, plus the 200 rand contract, 800 rand, and that's how we got the 800 rand. You understand? Guys, if you don't understand, remember, just drop us a little note, and Ty will tell me, hey, they don't know what you're talking about, and I will just try and repeat the whole thing again. Okay. And remember what we always say, there's no such thing as a stupid question except after you've written your final exam paper. If you've written your final exam paper and then you come and ask a question, that is a stupid question because there's nothing we can do to help you after that. All right, so final contract, option number 3. We're paying 400 rand a month, but we're only paying 1 rand for every minute that I talk, and I'm getting 200 free minutes. So again, I rush off, grab the cell phone. I'm so excited about this contract because I'm only going to pay 1 rand for every minute that I talk. I take my cell phone, I put it on my hand. It doesn't ring because I got no friends. I can't phone anyone because no one will give me their number. So all I do all month is look at the cell phone. And again, in the hope, in the anticipation, in the longing, in the desire to want to know what the ringtone sounds like. So I just have a look at my cell phone, glare at it constantly, and it doesn't ring and I make no calls. A whole month goes past. And I say, sure, at least I'm not paying for these calls, eh? So I think I've got away scot-free. But then I'm reminded that I was on a contract, and my contract said 400 rand a month. So although I've made no calls, I'm still paying 400 rand a month. There it is. Okay. Now, the most amazing thing happens. One day, my wife gives me her cell number. And so I now have someone to phone. She's never done it before. I don't know why she doesn't want to talk to me. It's quite hurting, actually. But here I am. I've now got her number, and so I phone her. And I put the phone to my ear, and she answers. When she hears who it is, she hangs up, but that's another story. But I can phone her as much as I want to. And I make 50 minutes worth of calls in that month. And I think, sure, this is going to cost me, eh? Because every call is 1 rand. So 50 times 1 rand is 50 rand I've got to pay just for the calls. And so I go off to pay it, and the person behind the counter says, oi, Mr. Templeton, you don't have to pay a thing. Why? Because we are giving you 200 free minutes. So even though I talk for 50 minutes, I'm not paying for that. It's free, it's gratis, and I'm so excited. So I'm about to walk out. She says, hold on. You did sign a contract. You still got to pay us 400 rand, please. So I've still now got to pay the 400 rand, even though I got the 50 minutes free. I'm talk for 100 minutes. So I pick up the phone and I talk to my wife for 100 minutes. In fact, that reminds me, I've got to phone my wife, so I think we've got to take a break.
Yes. So while you're doing that, guys, keep chatting on the page, keep sending us questions. Guys, I'm seeing you guys having a lot of fun with the whole joke thing, but guys, make sure you keep it back with the maths. Send us questions if you're having any issues, if you're confused with anything, and Pete will be sure to make sure he answers those. Anissa, I see you. Komani, I see you. Noxipedia, I see you. Guys, keep chatting, and we'll see you after this break. Welcome back, guys, to grade 11 maths literacy. I'm here with Pete. Pete is going to be taking us through a couple more examples. So guys, make sure you have your pens and your pads out and you're making notes. And keep chatting on the page, guys. And Pete, take it away.
Yeah, okay. All right. Sorry. Listen, dear, I've got to call you back. Okay, bye. Okay, this was my wife. Remember I said before the break I've got to make a few calls? Well, this is one of them. And why am I making a call? I'm making a call because for the first time in a long time, my wife's given me her cell number, okay? So even she's now prepared to talk to me, which is wonderful news. So I'm making more calls and making more calls. And at the end of the month, I've made 150 minutes worth of calls. And I'm like, holy cow, this is going to cost me a fortune. So I walk into my provider with a wad of money because I know this is going to cost me, okay? And they say, Mr. Silverton, you don't have to pay for the calls. Why? Because on the option that you've got now, option 3, you are paying R1 per minute, but you're getting 200 free minutes. And I'm absolutely thrilled with that. I don't have to pay for the calls. So I say, thanks very much. About to walk out, they grab me by the scruff of my neck and say, oi, come back. You signed a contract. The contract says you owe us 400 Rand every month before you even make any calls. So I've got to pay 400 Rand again. 150 minutes, 400 Rand, 200 minutes. I get 200 free. All I'm doing is paying for the contract. Okay? Then I get really excited, and the next month I make 250 minutes worth of calls to my wife. Okay? Just saying, I'm sorry. Okay? Because I burnt the dinner and drove over the dog and killed the duck and all the rest. But anyway, 250 minutes worth of calls. So I go into the provider and I say, hey guys, I'm not stupid, I've learnt. Even though you don't charge me for the calls, I've got to pay you 400 Rand. Here's the 400 Rand. And I walk out and they grab me by the scruff and they say, wait. You made 250 minutes worth of calls. We only give you 200 minutes free. You got to pay for those extra 50 minutes. So although I've made 250 minutes worth of calls, the 200 are free, 50 I've got to pay for. And those 50 are each costing me 1 Rand. So 1 times 50 is 50 plus the 400 contract, 450 Rand. The 300, same thing. Although I've spoken for 300 minutes, they're only going to charge me for 100. Why? Because I get 200 free. So they're going to take the 100 and say, right, 100 is going to cost you 1 Rand each minute. So 100 minutes times 1 Rand is 100 Rand. But I've still got to pay the contract. So it's going to be a further 400 Rand. It comes up to 500 Rand there. Okay. Are we happy with that? All right. Understand the difference. The one, we're just paying for the minutes. The second one, we're paying for the minutes, but also a contract. And the third one, we're paying for the minutes, we're paying for the contract, but we're getting a lot of those minutes free. Okay. So it sounds like this is a good deal. So if you understand that, and you know how to complete the table that we've just had a look at, drawing the graph or sketching the graph as such is going to be straightforward and very basic. Okay, so let's have a look here, and I'm going to look at a blank page over here, and we are going to try and draw this graph. So the first thing we have to do is we have to have a set of axes. And I'm going to do it like this and say, right, here's a set of axes over there, and we're going to have another one here. Right? Remembering, please, that this is my vertical axis. Why? Because it starts with a V and so does an arrow. And this is my horizontal axis. Why? Because if I'm standing on a hilltop, I'm looking out at the horizon. Cool. Now, what do we say? We say that, and I'm not going to do many of these points, I'm just going to plot a few. The first one we said is, if I don't talk, I don't pay. So I'm going to start that graph over here. And we said that as we talk, so we pay. And we are actually going to pay, I'm going to try and draw it straight, 3 Rand a minute. Okay? Now, folk, I haven't put the set of axes down or labels down. I haven't broken this up and said this is 100 minutes, 200 minutes, 300 minutes, because in matric and even in grade 11, you would never, ever, ever be expected to draw your own set of axes. We would give you a set of axes in an exam. All right? And then, normally, we'd put the figures down. If we don't put the figures down, you'd still be given the set of axes and you can work out the intervals. In other words, you can say every line across represents 5 Rand or 10 Rand or whatever the case is. Okay? Today, because we're running out of time, the producer's talking to me in my ear and saying all kinds of weird things, but one of the things she's saying is we've only got like 4 minutes, so I've got to try and be quite quick. So I'm just going to show you the differences of the graphs here. So the first graph, as we pay, or as we talk, so we pay. The second graph says you're also going to pay, but you're going to pay less, but you've got a contract. So we're not starting at 0, we're starting up here somewhere, and then we're going to talk like that. In fact, let's make that a different color. Why? Because I want to. Okay, so here we go. And let's find another color. White looks good. So there we go with our second graph. And our third option, and we'll go a different color there as well. Let's go pink because we've got lots of girls watching today. Our third option says this, that we're going to pay, remember it was you're paying 400 Rand a month, but the first 200 minutes you're not paying for. So all you're going to do is pay for the contract. That's all you're doing. And then eventually you're going to start paying something. In fact, I'm going to do this deliberately. I'm going to say, then you're going to start paying. Okay, now there's 2 things I want you to take note of. Firstly, take note where every graph starts. Okay? Second thing, take note of the steepness of every graph. The steeper the graph, the more you're paying for every single minute that you're talking. Now, option 1, we paid 3 Rand a minute. Look how steep the graph is in comparison to option 2, which we paid 2 Rand a minute, in comparison to option 3, for which we only paid 1 Rand a minute. Can you see that? Okay? So in drawing the graphs, understand as well that every graph that we've drawn here is a straight line. Why is it a straight line? Remember we said earlier, when I see a straight line, there's something consistent. There's something that is remaining the same. In my first graph, the thing that remained the same was the fact that every call was 3 Rand per minute. In my second graph, the thing that remained the same was the fact that every minute was 2 Rand. And the third graph, the thing that remained the same was every minute I spoke was 1 Rand a minute. And because of that, I've got my straight line. Okay, so exciting stuff. And in grade 11, those are 3 types of graphs we could look at, all with the same scenario. I love that question. I love giving it to my grade 11s, because if they can do that, they can basically do anything in graphs. Okay, so I believe we've got to start wrapping up, but I know that you've got 1 or 2 questions that someone's asked.
Yes, the thing is, this question is not exactly on the topic, but this person is dying to find out. Okay. Alex wanted to find out if 15% becomes 72.25, find the value of x.
If 15% is equal to?
If x equals 15%,
yeah,
and it becomes 72.25, find the value of x and show you're working.
Okay, so in other words, 15% of a number is 72 Rand 25. What was the whole number originally? That's how I interpret it. Okay, so what we're going to do then is we've got 72 Rand 25. Okay, now normally if I want to find 15%, I would times by 115 over 100. Okay, if I want to know what it originally was, I'm now going to say, well, I've got that, let's times it by 115 over 100. You know what, in fact, it gets quite complicated, hey? Geez, maybe we should put it on the Facebook page, because I'm told I've got 5 seconds left.
Okay, that's no problem. So You know what, Alex? We'll get that question answered for you on the page. But guys, it was awesome having you for today. Grade 12s, you guys are up next, so make sure you got your pens, your pads out, and you're on the Facebook page chatting to me, and I'll get those answers to Peter. So guys, see you next.